All right, the Detroit Pistons beat the New York Knicks 100-94. The better team won today. Pains me to say it. The team that should have won today won today. Pains me to say it. Let's get to the box score. First for the Detroit Pistons, Cade Cunningham, 33 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists. Dennis Schroeder, 20 points. Tobias Harris at 15 and 13. Jalen Brunson, 37 and 7, but I'll get to him later. Mikal Bridges with 19 and 5. And the team totally forgot that Karl Anthony Towns even existed. He did not score the basketball in the second half. They did not pass him the basketball. They didn't run any offense for Karl Anthony Towns in the second half. But we'll get to that later because first, you got to shout out the Detroit Pistons. They won the game. So you got to shout out the team that actually won, that team that showed up, the team that played better defensively, the team that moved the ball better. Their star was the best player in the game. Cade Cunningham was the best player in the game. The Knicks could not figure out a way how to stop him getting into the paint, getting into the mid-range, and hitting that jumper. They think they did a good job of getting OG Anunoby off of him throughout the game. Pick-and-roll situations. He read the pick-and-roll beautifully all game, even though it didn't translate into assist numbers. He still ran the show. He still dictated the pace of the game. And to me, that was one of the bigger differences in the game, along with the defensive pressure that the Detroit Pistons applied to not only Jalen Brunson, but to the Knicks half-court offense in general. I mean, for most of the second half, the Knicks were walking up the ball. The Knicks were unsure what to do in half-court sets. And by the time they even got any motion going in their offense, there was 8 seconds left on the shot clock, 7 seconds left on the shot clock, with no direction, nowhere to go. And all that can be contributed to the physicality of the Detroit Pistons defense. I mean, Knicks fans can talk all they want about maybe not getting calls, especially in the first half. You know, I do believe that it was kind of lopsided in the first half, at least. The second half, the refs were bad both ways. But in the first half, it seemed like the Knicks, weren't getting the benefit of the doubt with the whistle. But that's part of the game. And also, when you're the team that's more physical, when you're the team that's actually being the physical team and bringing the pressure, you tend to get away with more because you are the ones dictating the tempo. You're the ones dictating the physical nature of the game. And I think that's what happened throughout the whole game. The Pistons were just better. They just looked better throughout the whole game. There's just no other way to describe it. If you're a Knicks fan complaining about the refs, you're just misguided. I think there are certain things you can say. There are certain complaints, but that's every NBA basketball game. At the end of the day, Cade Cunningham showed up. Dennis Schroeder showed up, hit the huge three at the end where Jalen Brunson forgot to switch. Him and Josh Hart got mixed up on the pick and roll. Schroeder's left open, hits the three. Defensive breakdown that has happened to the Knicks way too often this year, and it killed them in game 2. Like I said before to start this episode, the better team won. It just is what it is. The better team won that day won. The Pistons were the better team in game 2. They deserved that victory. And there's just nothing else to say on the Pistons side. They showed up. They split in the Garden. They split in New York. They did what they had to do. Now they go back to Detroit with home court advantage and momentum on the side. If I'm a Knicks fan, which I am really disappointed with Jalen Brunson. I know he had 37 points, but the way he played the game yesterday was very selfish, if I'm just being honest with you, especially in the second half. It just seemed like he was on a personal mission to beat the Pistons by himself, and you can't just do that. There were too many possessions in the second half where Jalen would walk up the ball or he would have it past half court, and he was just trying to bully his way into the rim. And if he's not trying to bully his way into the rim, he's trying to take on 2 defenders in the pick and roll. And if he's not trying to take on 2 defenders in the pick and roll, he's trying to foul bait. That's all he did all game. There was no ball movement. There were no sets for Karl Anthony Towns. There were no sets for OG Anunoby. There were no sets for Mikal Bridges. Everything that they got from others was in result of Jalen panicking in the half court or having no other option but to pass the ball. They didn't get out and run. They walked the ball up the court. It was just horrible basketball from the New York Knicks. Now, a lot of that, of course, you give credit to the Pistons, right? When you play defense the way that they played all game, you're going to force those situations. You're going to make the team uncomfortable, and they're going to do things like walk off the ball. They're going to do things like being unsure of how to run an offense, and that's what happened last night with the Knicks. But at the same time, it is up to your point guard, the player who organizes the whole offense, to get the group together and to attack the defense in a way that can be successful and that involves everybody. It is up to the coach, Tom Thibodeau, to call different sets, to get Karl Anthony Towns isolated, or to get a favorable matchup for him in the post. Pick and rolls. There was none of that with Jalen Brunson and Cat. The whole thing with Jalen Brunson and Cat was how much spacing there's going to be between both of these players. And the pick and rolls that they're running pick and rolls with Deuce McBride. They're running pick and pops with Josh Hart. These are two players where you don't mind that every once in a while, but that's not the bread and butter of the offense, especially when you're struggling in the half court. So overall, I just thought it was a horribly coached game by Tom Thibodeau. I thought Jalen Brunson was very selfish. And I thought the Pistons, man, like they know themselves. And I talk about this all the time. If you know your role, if you know what you're supposed to be doing on offense and what you're not supposed to be doing, if you know your identity, that makes for a better team. Right now, you look at the Pistons, you have Dennis Schroeder, Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley. These are their veterans. These are the players stepping up and contributing to this series. These are players who, for the most part, the past few years have been fringe rotation players on playoff teams or decent teams. They haven't been players who have been contributing largely to the success of the teams that they've been on. Sometimes they're out of the rotation, and here they are going to the Garden looking like the better team after 2 games. Now, I do think the Knicks are better. I still think the Knicks win this series, but they have to get out of their heads. The Pistons right now are in the heads of this New York Knicks team, and this New York Knicks team is just a different team than they were last year. This wouldn't have happened last year with the makeup that they had. It's just a different vibe from this Knicks team. I still think they're better than the Pistons. I still have them winning this series, but it might not have been the easy road that I thought it would have been. I think there is a huge talent discrepancy here in the series. Yes, I think you can argue Cade Cunningham is one of the best players in the series. I don't think he's the best player in the series. But if he's playing the way he did in Game 2, it's going to be a long series, and the Knicks have to come to terms with that. They're going to have to come to terms that they're going to have to be just as physical. They're going to have to come to terms with that Malik Beasley and Asur Thompson. They're going to try to beat up Jalen Brunson. Go away from that. Do other things. Try other players. Try other sets. Run the ball. But that's just not what happened. Shout out to JB Bickerstaff with a great game plan. Shout out to Cade Cunningham for leading the charge. And, the Malik Beasleys who did not shoot well, but still had an impact in the game. Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench. Tobias Harris with a double-double. Right now, it's one of those series where it's showing that, having all the talent in the world doesn't mean anything if you can't put it together. And that's the frustrating thing as a Knicks fan, because we've been watching this all season. Even though they've won 50 games, they haven't won big games. They haven't beat a team that they are trailing in the standings. They did not beat the Celtics. They didn't beat the Cavs. They didn't beat the Thunder. They didn't beat the Lakers. They didn't beat the Warriors. They didn't beat the Clippers all season. Not one victory against any of those teams. So you come into the playoffs and you wonder how they're going to fare, but you think they're going to beat a team like the Pistons pretty easily because that's what they've been doing all year, despite their record against the Pistons. That's a whole other story. There's injuries involved, yada, yada, yada. But overall, shout out to the Pistons. You just got to give it up. Tip your cap if you're a Knicks fan. Move on Game 3. I got the Knicks in Game 3. I think they show up in Detroit, and I think they get a W. I think we see a vintage Jalen Brunson performance. I think we see Cat more involved. I think Tibbs is going to make it a point to get him more involved in the offense. You're going to see better ball movement on that side of the basketball because there's no reason for the stagnation that was going on. But listen, Kwab's out. He's not feeling well. We might do an episode tonight recapping one of the games. We'll see. We got Timberwolves Lakers going tonight. Just had to give my 2 cents on the Knicks. I wear this hat every episode. I had to say something. So you can follow us everywhere at The Dime NBA. I'm Josh Rodriguez at Josh_Rodriguez_. Stay tuned for another game recap soon. Another episode of The Dime. Peace.